So what is real freedom? Is it income or is it net worth? Well, we have a lot of conversations about that here, and net worth really is your freedom. Net worth is something that people don't pay a lot of attention to. I mean, truthfully, when I was growing up, I remember saying, gosh, if I could only make this much money. And it's all about the income game, right? It's about earning a little bit more every single year, getting a percentage raise, getting to a level that maybe your goal is to get to 6 figures. Maybe your goal is to get to 7 figures. I don't know. But whatever your goal is, it's going to be something usually income based. When the reality is net worth is something that you really should be paying attention to. Net worth is like when you buy your first house for $100,000 and then you go and you upgrade your house and now it's $250,000, and that $150,000 of equity that you made in your home, you are now able to put down on a new house worth even more. Net worth is taking everything you own and subtracting everything you owe. And the own is the game. Ownership is the game. It's why equities are called equities. It means you have an ownership stake in something like a company. An equity is the company. You have equity in the company. So the things we focus on that builds us equity, that builds us value of net worth, that's how you become more stable, more financially secure, more wealthy. And this is really the game that you see all the time. You see especially in the political times that we're in now and prior, leading up in an election, you'll see a lot of stuff about, oh, this guy doesn't pay X and that guy doesn't pay Y and this senator doesn't do this. Most of those individuals have built up their net worth pretty high, and they live off the capital gains. They live off the dividends and the interest that their portfolios are creating. They live off the rental income of the houses that they own. They're not living off of the income. The income is something that they get and use to build towards something bigger. So a lot of times, the other thing we hear a lot is, if you're like me, you just constantly listen to people like Warren Buffett and all these really great, smart financial, savants. And Buffett will often say opportunity cost is why he doesn't buy a new car every year. Buffett's this average Joe who lives in Omaha, Nebraska, and he drives the same 7 to 10-year-old car that he's been driving for a while, which for a guy that's as wealthy as him is weird. We all think that's weird. When we see it, we're like, what? Just at least go buy the new Cadillac, Warren. But he doesn't. And he doesn't because he looks at compound interest. He looks at the fact that if he spends $50,000 to $65,000 on that new version of the new car that he needs every year, he's taking away $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 of his net worth, of his equity in his own wealth in the future. He's taking it away. He's losing it. The opportunity for having more in the future is being sacrificed by spending it today. So, I look back at my first jobs, and I worked at the Attorney General's office for the state of Virginia pretty soon right after college. And I remember getting the job and getting an increase in salary from the first job I took. And I was like, wow, I'm growing, I'm getting there. And then the next job I took was another bump in salary. What most of us do when we get a bump in salary is we don't actually make more, we just spend more. Like whatever we're making, we're spending it. You get an extra 5%, before you know it, on average, it's gone. It's gone. And you've had it spent before you even got it, most people. I mean, most people, like all of us, have been at a time in our lives where we spent more than we made. And therefore, when we made more, we were actually going and putting it towards our liabilities, not our net worth. It was only until the focus became the net worth, became a property, became the equity we built in our first house, became building and developing something bigger than ourselves so that we had revenue that was originated from those things. Those are the things that you focus on that really develop some level of wealth. And these are the things that we get our clients to focus on. focusing on the ownership. When I was a new financial advisor, we used to have this really cool T-chart we would draw. And I'll do another video one day, and I'll do the own versus loan presentation because it's an awesome presentation. But someone would say, I only invest in CDs, or I only invest in this. And you would say, okay, well, why don't you tell me about all the things that you invest in and all the best investments you've ever had, and we'll draw a little T-chart. And on this side of the T, we'll have own, and on this side over here, we'll have loan. And you start to go through all the things that they think were good investments. Guess what the things that are never in that column? They're never your car. Your car is very rarely an investment. Unless you're buying an antique that goes up in value, very few of them do. You're buying something that depreciates the day you buy it. That brand new Tahoe for $70,000 is worth 58 or 62 the day you drive it off the lot. Like, it's just not happening. That RV that everybody's buying right now, guess what? I have never seen a product go down quicker in value than driving off the lot of an RV. Now, if you're going to use it, it's worth every penny. And so I'm not actually criticizing, because I'd love to own one, quite frankly. But the value of it, when you pay $100,000, it's worth 88 off the lot. Like, that's tough. That's depreciating. So when we drew those two columns, own and loan, we draw out the things that were in them. And so CDs were a hot topic. CDs, certificates of deposit, things that you get from the bank, savings accounts, checking accounts, money in cash. You're loaning your money to the bank for them to earn interest on your money and pay you a fixed amount. Bonds, you're loaning your money to something, some company, some entity, some municipality to get income off of that. But it's a loaned investment. Those investments usually come back in principal. I give $100,000 to a CD, I get $100,000 back in 18 months, and I made 4 pennies. You know, whatever the number is. That number is a made up number. I have to say these things because they would say that I'm trying to tell you that there's an interest rate that actually is 4 pennies, and there isn't. But either way, those are all loaned investments. You don't get rich off of loaned investments. You don't get wealthy off of loaned investments. In the other column, most people will say the best investment I ever made is my house. Okay? Now, why? Because they put in X amount and it's worth Y. And today, that house has gone up in value. Now, yes, we often forget all the upgrades we made, all the times we had to replace all the appliances, all the carpet changes and the drapes changes and the kitchen remodels and the bathroom remodels. And by the time you actually do the math, you might be in your house for break even and it's still a great investment because you own it. See, you still own it. It's still yours. You put in X and anything it went up market-wise, the market value of a $100,000 home that's worth $150,000 5 years from now, that $50,000 of equity is your owned equity. It's yours. When you sell it, you keep it. It's not coming back to you as an exact investment. And so when you're talking net worth, the more ownership things you have, the better your net worth tends to look. So from an ownership standpoint, stocks are an ownership investment. You own a piece of a company. Might be a super small piece, but you own it. If one of these drug companies comes out with that COVID, the remedy everybody's waiting for, the vaccine that everyone can't wait for, and I'm not going to talk about any particular companies, but if one comes out with it and you own a piece of that company, it might be positive for you. If you own one of the other companies that didn't come up with it, it might be negative for you. See, the thing about ownership investments are because you own it, you take the risk. When you have a loaned investment, oftentimes it diminishes a little bit of the risk, but it also diminishes your returns. When you're focused on ownership and you're focused on owning anything, you build your net worth. And so as you build your net worth and you watch it build, here's where you get to the really good stuff. When you build a real estate portfolio, or you build a stock portfolio, or you build something in your net worth column that's actually paying you to live. So now all your bills and expenses are being paid by your net worth column. This is cool. Your net worth column is paying your living expenses. How important is income? How important is freedom? Is net worth really freedom? Absolutely. It's the freedom that you're missing in your life. If you're focusing on the income, you're focusing on the wrong column. The income is work. It's day in and day out. It's overscheduling. It's never having time to breathe. It's knowing you make an X amount for Y work. It's not the same freedoms you get when you own something and it provides you income. So imagine I have in this net worth column enough to get $50,000 a year of income, and that pays all my expenses. It pays my mortgage, it pays my food, it pays for everything. Now my income is providing me the opportunity costs of really being able to invest in more things that build that ownership column. I'm not really sitting over here on the sideline putting money in the risk-free loaned column, which there are times where that makes great sense. I'm not saying that that is not something that people should or shouldn't do. I'm just saying that these are two different columns, and you get wealthy by making good, solid decisions by building your net worth. That's what the wealthy do. That's why in the political conversations, like we mentioned earlier, people say so-and-so is paying, Warren Buffett pays less taxes percentage-wise than his secretary. You'll hear him say this. How is that possible, Scott? It's possible because she pays income taxes on ordinary income, and he pays capital gains taxes from his net worth column, his stocks and his investments. That, my friend, is freedom. Now, we're not all going to be Warren Buffett, and I don't even think most of us will ever even get to just the W of Warren Buffett. But the reality is we are smart enough to work together and build something in the right column. So there's always a good day to start, and it's right now. What's your column look like? Have you done an evaluation? Do you know what you own versus what you loan? Do you know what you own versus what you owe? All those things matter, and that's where you find freedom. Tell me, are you focusing on net worth, or are you focused on the income column? Are you focused on your cash flow? Let me know below what you think. Let me know what your comments are. I'd love to hear your opinions and your insight. I'm Scott Danner. Thanks for joining me.